Hi, this tutorial is brought to you by pm-prep35.com. pm-prep35.com is a free PMP training website. Access pm-prep35.com for a lot of mock exams and free chapter and tests. In this session, I'm going to cover plan cost management process, and this process is part of cost management knowledge area. As the name goes, it's a planning process. So plan cost management, as the name goes, deals with creation of the cost management plan, all the plans which belong to the different knowledge areas, starting from scope, time, cost, quality, human resources, procurement, stakeholder, and all the knowledge areas, the 10 knowledge areas part of the PMBOK. They have a plan attached to it, and these are called as subsidiary plans because the main plan is part of, which is called as the project management plan. It is part of the project integration management knowledge area, and the project integration management knowledge area is one process wherein the project manager has total control and he has to ensure all the processes or all the knowledge areas, they are under control in terms of ensuring everything is documented in the project management plan. The project management plan has links to subsidiary plans and also the baselines. So although the project management plan is the master document, but then as more detailed information is got, the project manager develops separate subsidiary plans for each of the knowledge areas. That's where the cost management plan is a separate document, though the project management plan has just a link to it. So with that knowledge, the project management plan ideally has links to different subsidiary plans, and cost management plan is one of them. Understandably, scope, time, cost are the triple constraints. So the plans for these are really important because these drive the project in terms of ensuring that the project is done within scope or what has been promised is delivered, as well as ensuring the time that has been specified, that this project will be completed in so and so time, becomes a milestone, and then there's a cost attached. Scope, time, and cost are the triple constraints, therefore the plans related to those are really important. Cost management plan, specifically like any other plan, deals with tailoring of the different processes within the knowledge area. For example, the other processes in this particular knowledge area are estimate cost and budget cost process, as well as control cost. So the cost management plan deals about how to go about building these processes in place or putting these processes in place. So how would I estimate costs? How would I do budgeting? How would I control costs? Or in other words, the control cost is nothing but you have a baseline specified your budget in your budget cost process. Before that, you estimate all the costs related to the activities and you come up with a project cost. Then you go to the client and say, this is the cost that's coming up for the project. The customer might agree to that, or maybe he says this is too high, and then probably you have to revisit your different baselines like the scope, time, and all that. Probably cut down to requirements or increase the timeline so that the cost and time match up. So your cost baseline is an agreed factor which is a balancing of different project objectives, scope, time, cost, quality, and all that. So based on that, your cost baseline is agreed, and you ensure that this cost baseline is you do all that to preserve that cost baseline in terms of not breaching, adding new requirements, or ensuring that you're not going over the cost agreed. So that's where the control cost process comes into comes in place, wherein you ensure that your actuals are in line with what was planned. So you control any variances. You ensure what is your plan value for till date. If I have completed 50% of the project, if I am supposed to spend about say $500, but then I am spending $600, then there is a control measure that is involved. So what you do, you see how you can bring your cost under control in at least the remaining part of the project, or should you raise a change request stating that because of this reason the cost has gone overboard, so I need more resources, or I want some of the resource to be cut down, and things like that. So these become part of the control cost process, which is again a monitoring and controlling process. So the cost management plan not only details about how to estimate the cost, how to come up with the baseline, but also to ensure that any variances to the baselines are controlled, as well as how will you keep checking performances. What is the threshold? Threshold means how much can my budget or my actuals go overboard for the current current context or current phase of the project. What is the allowed variance? More than this, if it goes above the threshold, then I need to take control measures. So it goes to so much detail, looking at how these things, different scenarios can be handled. So the project manager starts with the planning process, so he puts as much as he can during all of this planning process, and that's where he uses his skills and expert judgment to come up with the different plans. Like the cost management plan is one of them, where he puts as much expertise during the planning phase, so that in the executing processes you just follow what is there in the planning process. So that's where the project manager's experience comes into picture, because of the fact that the management plans are created during the initial stages. Especially it is applicable to scope, time and cost. This is one of the these processes are attacked quite early, so the planning is the first step. So obviously you come up with a cost management plan or the scope management plan, time management plan during the early iterations. So you don't look at the project charter. Your project charter is one of the main inputs for these process. Obviously building the project management plan and the subsidiary plan is an iterative process, so that's where the project management plan also becomes an input. These planning processes, or mainly the process that deals with creation of the management plans, the subsidiary plans. So with that idea, let's quickly walk through the different points in this particular process. Just understand that all the processes that deals with deal with creation of the management plans, be it the subsidiary, in fact all the subsidiary plans, they have the same approach. The project management plan and the project charter, especially the project management plan, is an important input. Basically these are done when you start as the first step. You don't have many documentation to look at, but then the project management plan is the only developed document. So that's where from there you build your subsidiary plans. So project management plan is an important input. The next important input is the enterprise environmental factors. Basically you need to factor in the external factors that can affect the planning processes. So that's where your enterprise environmental factors are really important. There might be a lot of risks which you have to factor in, which is mainly you get to pull out most of the risks when you look at what is the context or the external environment that is going to affect the concerned project. So that might take the form of marketplace conditions, or it can be the organization structure, culture, or anything that would be a constraint to otherwise you would have done the project in a different way. So these are some of the main inputs. So with these things in mind, just quickly walk through the important points, the tools and techniques, inputs and outputs of this particular process. The plan cost management is one of the first planning process the project manager works on, because of the fact that this is one of the triple constraints. The process detailed from a high level project charter and the preliminary project management plan. So you call it as a preliminary project management plan here. Basically you would have started just on the project management plan, but then you might want to pull out just the details specific to the cost knowledge area into separate document called the cost management plan. So whatever details you have in the project management plan about the different knowledge areas or the different project objectives, you want to check while you build the cost management plan. So The project management plan is mostly in a preliminary stage because it doesn't have much information, and from there you build your cost management plan. Not only that, the project management plan has links to how other plans are being built or how other baselines are placed. So to look all those, project management plan is an important input, so that you can from there build a more accurate and precise cost management plan for the current context. The cost management plan has process tailoring guidelines for the different processes in the cost knowledge area. So although there are processes specified in the PMBOK, not all processes need to be followed the way it is stated. The project manager might want to tailor both the process in terms of adding his own tools and techniques which befit the current project context, as well as change the structure of the cost management plan as he sees it's necessary. But these are all best practices that the PMBOK states in terms of plan for your cost estimation, plan for cost budgeting, then also specify how to control costs. But then based on the project, you might want to tailor certain areas or add more information in the cost management plan. So that's what the tailoring guidelines is also part of the cost management plan. What sort of tailoring will I do, when will I do what? So that kind of information gets covered in the cost management plan. So inputs or the project management plan. The project management plan has details at the broad level about how to build the subsidiary plans. This also has details about other baselines and project objectives. So this is the way you look at your project management plan being an input to the subsidiary plans. It's like a document which has the links to all the baselines and the subsidiary plans. So obviously when you're creating a plan, you need to ensure that the plan is really broad enough so that it covers all the constraints or the project objectives well. So that's why you look at other things also apart from the cost related aspects. So you take a look at your scope baseline, you take a look at your schedule baseline. How are you going to handle schedule? For example, at some point in the middle of the project, I need to add more resources. Those information you can get an idea when you look at your project management plan. Whatever however small it might be, it is really important for you to factor in when you come up with the cost management plan. Then the second input is project charter. The project charter has high level budget and other constraints for development of cost management plan. So anything high level cost, high level milestones, or high level team or initial team identified. So these are all part of the project charter. So when you start off initially, you want to look up at these and then build your cost management plan based on what is the budget that's in mind, the high level budget. So anything you talk about high level, that's a keyword which is very specific to project charter. Environmental factors, next input, which has details about the context or the environment in which the project is going to work. The environment can be part of the organizational environment, or it can be an external environment which again affects the organization as such, or anything that is a constraint and it is external and you don't have much control, but then you have to change the way the project would work, or you have to plan and factor in either to avoid it or mitigate things in terms of the enterprise environmental factors. So these things these are some of the things that should be factored as part of your planning process. Then comes the organizational process. As said, all the plans have a organizational template which you want to reuse. So these are lessons learned or historical information, might be historical information for previous projects so you might have planned successfully some of the projects for the same client in earlier date. So you want to reuse that knowledge as well as the template. So that's where the organizational process asset might be a knowledge base or a repository where you store your documents or lessons learned. So you want to look up and reuse that knowledge. So the tools and techniques, expert judgment. The manager uses knowledge from other project managers and other business units, external consultants, or SMEs, subject matter experts. to build the cost management plan. Then there is a lot of analysis that gets in the process, because there are SMEs involved, different managers involved, different stakeholders might be involved. So analytical techniques is one of the techniques in this process. Then meetings, because planning processes always have a lot of meetings involved. The project manager spend about 90% of his time on meetings, and obviously planning is one place where the project manager spends a lot of his time. So meetings are an important technique here. Tool and technique, as part of tool and technique, meetings is one of them as part of all the planning process. So cost management plan is the output. The cost management plan details the processes involved, the cost knowledge area. It tells what all processes will be part of this particular project. For this particular project, what all processes will be used and how they would be tailored, what tools will I use, when would I estimate my costs, what approach would I use, what methods, what tools and techniques would I use, how would I come up with my baseline starting from my cost estimates, how would I control variances, what is the methodology, how would I measure performance against the baseline. It might be a weekly meeting where you check certain things, what are the parameters you will check it against, and who will tell all that. I mean, some of them, again, these will have slightly overlap. If you talk too much about who will tell all that, it might fall in stakeholder management or the communication management knowledge area. But then just think in lines as to controlling variances of cost, planning cost, or how to come up with the estimate, how to come up with the baseline. So if you restrict only to this, it becomes a discrete process called plan cost management. So that's how you need to look at when you're talking about PMBOK. Okay, so that's how it is. So the cost management plan has details like level of precision or the unit of measure. Like for example, is it in dollars, or what is the local currency I would use. So that is specified here. Level of precision is like, for example, I have a 0.5, so whether I would make it to the next higher number or I would make it a lower number. So that kind of information. Level of accuracy, any range, like for example, you come up with some estimate, would you keep a 10 to minus 10 to 10% range, or would you come up with the minus 20 to 20% range? So these things. Control thresholds, what variance is allowed. Like there is a variance happening, for example, you are going overboard by $10, you don't want to bother about it so much, because the next week you might gain by about $1,000. So these variances are also specified as part of your cost management plan. Rules for performance measurement, how would you do performance measurement, like would you do a cost performance index, would you come up with a cost performance index, or you might be involved with contractors, and how would you aggregate their costs incurred with your cost incurred, what is the model that you would use to come up with to check what is the overall performance of the project. So these are some of the things that will be part of your cost management plan. So irrespective of the plan, you just think these plans to be handling processes within that particular knowledge area, and then controlling variances, measuring performance. Sometimes it might go to the level of analyzing trends and checking your reserves, which is more relevant to in terms of schedule management and all that. But slightly you go overboard talking too much about measuring performance, it might fall in your monitoring and controlling process. But look at the planning process or creation of the plans, subsidiary plans, as something like you are putting measures there. How will you do things? How will you do this process of estimate cost? How will you do cost budgeting? How will you check performance? How will you check variance? But if you do the actual measure, then it becomes part of monitoring and controlling process. So that's where you need to stop your understanding as well as your thoughts. That's where you need to attack things. When somebody talks about measuring performance, it's more related to monitoring, controlling. But when you put the performance measures as such, it becomes part of your planning process. So that's about the plan cost management process, which deals with creation of the cost management plan. Do visit pm-prep35.com to access other free resources, mock exams, chapter and tutorials, and other tutorials. Thank you.